I had just moved into my grandmother's house when I found the cute yet strange labubu doll. Every night I heard soft laughter coming from the living room, but I never saw anything. One night, I set up a camera to record. The next morning, I watched the footage and was shocked. The labubu doll was moving on its own, laughing and dancing on the shelf. I knew I had to uncover the doll's origins before things got worse. After watching the recording, fear and curiosity enveloped me. I couldn't sleep well, imagining what might happen next. That night, I sat on the sofa, staring at the labubu doll, which was silent on the shelf. It seemed to hold a deeper secret. Days passed, and every night, the terror escalated. On the third night after I recorded the doll, I heard the sound of dripping water. At first, I thought it was just a leaky faucet. But when I went to the kitchen, I was shocked to see the faucet wide open. Water was gushing out, filling the sink. I quickly turned off the faucet, feeling that something was very off. The next night, as I was trying to sleep, I suddenly heard a commotion coming from the living room. I rushed out to find the furniture in disarray. Cushions were thrown everywhere, and the coffee table was overturned. In the midst of the chaos, labubu sat calmly, as if watching everything unfold with a wide smile on its face. It was a smile that sent chills down my spine. The following night, I decided to set up the camera again. I wanted to capture the strange moment, but just before I could press the record button, the light suddenly went out. In the darkness, I fumbled to find the switch, but when I turned the lights back on, they went out again. The sound of the doll's laughter floated in the air, as if it were relishing my fear. I began to feel trapped in a game I couldn't win. Each night, the terror unleashed by the doll grew more brutal. One night, as I tried to hide in my room, I heard a faint scream. I ran toward the source of the sound and found the doll standing in the middle of the room, surrounded by scattered belongings. Its cute laughter had turned into a terrifying voice. "Play the game! Play the game!" it yelled, its voice echoing throughout the house. I knew I had to uncover the origins of this doll before everything got worse. The next day, I found my grandmother's diary hidden among a pile of things. With great curiosity, I opened it and began to read. It turned out that the labubu doll had belonged to my grandmother since she was a child. In the diary, she wrote about how much she loved the doll, considering it her best friend. However, there were also entries that expressed her sadness and longing for the doll after she grew up. After reading my grandmother's diary, I realized how deep the bond was between her and the labubu doll. The terror I had been experiencing seemed to stem from the doll's loneliness after losing someone it loved so dearly. With firm resolve, I knew I had to take steps to end this. That night, I decided to bury labubu next to my grandmother's grave. I believed that in doing so, the doll could be reunited with my grandmother and find peace. The next day, I went to the backyard, where my grandmother was buried. In my heart, I hoped this decision would bring tranquility to the trapped soul. As I dug the earth beside my grandmother's grave, the atmosphere felt still. The only sounds were the gentle whisper of the wind and the chirping of birds. After finishing the hole, I carefully placed the labubu doll inside, recalling all the laughter and beautiful memories shared between my grandmother and the doll. Before covering it with dirt, I placed some fresh flowers on top of the doll and prayed that my grandmother and labubu could find happiness together. After I finished, I leveled the soil and marked the spot. From that moment on, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. That night, I slept soundly for the first time since the terror began. The laughter that had once frightened me was now replaced by a feeling of peace. A few weeks later, when I visited my grandmother's grave, I felt as if something was different. The atmosphere around the grave felt calm and full of love. I believed that labubu had found its place beside my grandmother and was no longer disturbing our lives. By burying the doll next to my grandmother's grave, I had not only ended the frightening terror, but also celebrated the everlasting love and memories between my grandmother and the labubu doll. Now I could continue my life in peace, carrying my grandmother's beautiful memories in my heart.
Hehehehe